Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. Women make up less than 1/3 of all STEM-related jobs. The cybersecurity workforce in the US alone has over 500,000 unfilled positions. This perpetuates a national security and safety risk, and we've definitely seen some very public recent instances of ransomware breach. Yet women are still vastly underrepresented in cyber. We know that discrimination and the gender pay gap still exists, but we've made great strides, and we have many exceptional women working to keep this momentum going. I will note that in the federal government, the general schedule is used to compensate individuals based on education and experience, so that's fantastic. I'm thrilled to be here this morning with 3 women who are cybersecurity leaders themselves. Each of them is mentoring or otherwise enabling women to enter and succeed in the cybersecurity workforce. I'm going to take a quick poll from our speakers as I introduce them. I want to start with Jothi Dugar. She's the Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO, at the Center for Information Technology at the National Institutes of Health. Jothi has a technical background with extensive experience in cyber and as a CISO at NIH. She's been named one of the 18 Chief Security Officers you should know and was a 2020 Women Cybersecurity Leader of the Year nominee. Jothi, yes or no? Can women in cyber really have it all?
Yes, they can, and we are all great examples of that.
Thank you. Danielle Santos is up next. She's the Communications Manager at the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, or NICE, at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST. Hopefully most of the folks in cyber have heard of NIST. Danielle has a background in both cyber and business, serving as Program Manager for cybersecurity formal education programs in several organizations. Good morning, Danielle. Yes or no, can women in cyber really have it all?
Absolutely. Women definitely can have it all in cybersecurity.
Next up, we have Michelle Tuggle. She's Principal Security Analyst in Security and Compliance at Okta. Michelle has served as an information technology cybersecurity professional across federal government for over 20 years. She's also a proud 12-year Navy veteran, where she served as a firefighter and later as a public affairs officer. Good morning, Michelle. Yes or no? Can women in cyber really have it all?
Good morning, everyone. Indeed, we can have it all.
Excellent. So our poll results are 3 out of 3 emphatic yeses. Women in cyber can have it all. So I want to throw this first question out to the group. We know that there's a cyber workforce challenge and that women are by far underrepresented, but we also know that COVID has pushed more women out of the workforce in the last year and a half. What do we need to do to reinvigorate this demographic now? Does the recent attention from the publicized cyber events help the cause?
I can start. So thank you so much, everyone, for having me on this panel. It's a great honor to be here. So Jackie, that's a great question. I think when we think of the cyber field, we really have to look at it from a holistic point of view. It's not just a hacker in a hoodie out there trying to code and trying to take money from people. Yes, that sort of world does exist in cybersecurity, but it's so much more than that. And that's the beauty of cyber. It's so holistic. There's technology and there's technical skills that may be involved, but it doesn't have to be, just an understanding of technology that most people have these days. And COVID actually almost forced that to happen. For even professions that really thought that they didn't really need to do too much of technology, maybe just some data entry work. But now with having to do virtual teleworking and virtual telehealth, and just everything's become virtual these days, it kind of forced everyone, women, men, even children, to learn technology. And when you learn technology, you also have to learn how to protect your technology and your data and yourself. So little by little, the whole world of cybersecurity is becoming larger and larger, and it's actually becoming part of everyone's lives. It's just a way of being. Just like everyone has to know something about finances, pretty soon everyone has to know something about cybersecurity and cyber safety just to live. So I think it really opens doors for women and even the younger generation, young girls as well, that, as they learn how to protect themselves and all of their assets and their information in just small ways, really the holistic view approach is going to help them not feel scared about cybersecurity or think of it as something that, oh, this is just something that, those cyber folks have to do.
And so if I can add to that, Jothi makes a very good point. I think there's a level of intuitiveness that comes with life, but especially for women in the cybersecurity arena, we have a level of intuitiveness that is kind of unspoken, but we know it's there. But I think as we move into the cybersecurity workforce and into those spaces, we bring that intuitiveness with us and that holistic approach and the ability to merge the two. I think it works very well for women as they move into some of these different arenas and they have different experiences within these arenas. So being able to be diverse and being able to use that level of intuitiveness and use it within that holistic approach, I think would be a great way to merge into this world.
And I think, Jackie, going back to what you were asking about how to reinvigorate women and reaching this demographic, I think one of the things Jothi actually said, I thought it was so awesome talking about the imagery that's used for cybersecurity. And I think one of the main ways we can reinvigorate this group is really demystifying, focusing in on how we can demystify what cybersecurity looks like and harp on the different skills that are appreciated and can be very vital to a cybersecurity career. Because I think once we start making those connections, more and more women will see how they can be productive and be a valuable asset to the cybersecurity space.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Danielle, I think, we mentioned that you work for NIST's National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, or NICE. Can you briefly describe for us how the NICE workforce framework for cybersecurity works and how it can help an individual enter into and succeed in the cyber workforce?
Absolutely, sure. And I apologize you had to list that full name out. It's a tongue tie. But the NICE framework is essentially it's a taxonomy of how to refer to what cybersecurity work looks like. So it describes different roles in cybersecurity. It describes knowledge and skills and tasks you might do for each of those roles, and how I think it can really help engage people in this space is by understanding what those roles are. Yes, a lot of them are technically focused. A lot of them are building off of skills like coding and networking and your typical cybersecurity areas. But there are also roles that people don't always think of, like the leadership aspects. I know we have some great panelists here who are in leadership roles in cybersecurity. So it talks about those as well. It talks about the program management aspect. It talks about teaching and making people doing the cybersecurity awareness pieces of just getting that general cybersecurity etiquette and keeping a clean machine and things like that. So it talks about those kinds of different roles. And I think by being able to define those roles, it helps people understand where they might fit into the career. And based off of the framework that we've built, we've been able to see these tools that people can use, things that help people navigate through their career in cybersecurity, and shows them if they're going to start in one place, what might it take to get to the next role in my career and advance in my career and build up my skills. So I think that's kind of how it's being used in a positive light to help people understand their career path and get into it.
I love that. And I think that, it's really wonderful for helping people think out of the box. It's not always easy to try to find a path into a space that you don't know yet. And I definitely know a couple of folks who are using it at different organizations and using it successfully to promote people. So Jothi, at NIH, you're talking about, the holistic or the people-centric approach. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means to you and how it actually helps women engage in or consider moving into cybersecurity careers?
Sure. So we actually had a whole initiative called the Optimized NIH, which involved different areas, but one was IT security. And I was the lead for the People and Culture Working Group. And part of that, we created a cyber safety campaign. Because one thing I noticed was that when you say cybersecurity, it almost kind of rings a bell in your brain that it's like, this is kind of optional. We don't really have to do this. But when you talk about safety and you look at the different areas out there, like vehicle safety, automobile safety, airline safety, home safety, it almost, you tend to just not take it for granted, or you tend to like, oh, no, I don't care about my safety. Most of the time, people it's like, oh, yeah, what do we need to do to protect ourselves? So we started calling it cyber safety. And we really started this whole initiative where we reached out to we first looked at all of our different stakeholders, like who are the stakeholders at the NIH? What are the different roles out there? And how can we group those roles together? Administrators, HR specialists, like IT specialists, like leadership, all that. And we're a hospital, or we have one of the largest hospitals in the world out there. So we have clinicians, medical staff, we have emergency staff. And we really looked at, okay, what is their interpretation? How do they think they play a role in cyber safety? And it was really an eye-opening exercise for us. Not only their role in cyber safety, but also what are their pain points? How can we understand their pain points and not take that for granted? And then how can we help them determine, how can they do their job more securely so that they can protect their data and they can protect what they're trying to do? So we're not trying to create roadblocks or just add some more complications to their existing lives, but what we're actually helping them do, or our goal was to help them realize that everyone plays a role in cyber safety. It wasn't just like the IT staff or the security staff or the CIOs. And then what we also did was we created a champion program. So just to kind of open those doors for, women, men, a diverse group of individuals that maybe wanted to learn more about cyber safety and cybersecurity, or they were fed up and had a lot of pain points that they kind of brought to the table, which is great for us to hear from the different stakeholder groups. So we started giving these champions toolkits, information, broaden their awareness, and then they acted as champions for their own institutes or centers or even their own groups to kind of take back this information and really broaden the scope of cybersecurity. So at the end of the campaign, we really got a good feeling for all the pain points across the NIH, with all the roles, but also enable them to feel like they play a part in this. It's not just someone just telling them what to do or what they can't do. Everyone plays a huge part. And if every person can even just take small steps in their own functions and their own roles, they could, the compilation of all of their efforts will, produce a massive positive effect.
Awesome. I want to go to Michelle now. I think, you're looking at this from a different side of the same coin, right? So how are you looking at engaging more women to grow your workforce to meet demand?
Well, that is an excellent question. Coming from the federal sector and in the intel community and things like that, it is a different animal. And so I'm coming from the outside looking in, almost from a federal perspective. But, I'm looking at the growth of some of these backgrounds and platforms on the commercial sector and how they're intermingling in the cybersecurity requirements that are there and that are in place. And so it's a new mindset for a lot of people in the commercial space, but a lot of women are coming into the space, bringing the skills that they have. And there are a lot more opportunities for them because they are identifying some things from a cybersecurity perspective, I think, just from a common sense perspective sometimes, that are vital to us moving into that space and teaching a workforce how to operate within this new world, this new federal world. So it's been a really, really eye-opening experience in terms of in the federal spaces. I was, it's kind of second nature. Like Jothi says, people are like, oh yeah, that's cybersecurity, we have to do that. But in the commercial space, it's almost like, well, we didn't have to do that before. but now we have to do that. And how do we get this done? So I talk to young women all the time that are coming into our workspace, and they're like, I never knew that this existed, but it's really exciting. And even some young men, they're just like, I want to learn how to do that. I want to learn how to operate in that space, because there are a lot more tentacles to it than we had before. So it's really an exciting time, I think, in the corporate world, moving into that, that federal realm and into the cybersecurity space as we know it.
I want to pull on a thread of something you mentioned, and also this goes back to what Danielle said a little bit as well. Danielle mentioned some different career types that might move into cybersecurity, right? But outside of those types, what are the desired skills, or what are the skills that are really needed right now that could help someone move into cybersecurity?
Great question. I think the main skill is the ability to communicate, the ability to write. And communicate on paper, and communicate your thoughts, and communicate your level of intelligence within that space. So many times we in the commercial space, I've seen people that grew up kind of on computers and gaming and things like that, and so they chop up English, and they don't really communicate the way that's essential in the cybersecurity, realm that they need to. That's first and foremost. But the ability to think outside of the box, even in the cybersecurity space, I think everyone needs to be able to be intuitive and instinctive. And so that intuition and that instinctiveness will take you a long way in this space.
I couldn't agree more with Michelle's point about communication. As someone whose role is about communication, I definitely think that's something that's valued and needed in cybersecurity. I would also add, one of the things that's needed is a desire to learn. Cybersecurity is changing all of the time, and if you're going to work in the cybersecurity space, you're going to need to keep up with what's happening, and there will be new tools and technologies and new threats. So being able to adapt and want to learn the new skills that'll be able to meet the need to protect against those threats, I think is really important.
Mm-hmm. Great. If I can add one more point, this is a scenario I had with a young man the other day, and he says, I want to do this, and I want to learn, I want to know this, and I know this, and I know this. And I said, I'm going to give you some advice. Be a learn-it-all. Don't be a know-it-all. Because when you know it all, there's no room for you to grow. There's no room for your intellect to grow. So always be a learn-it-all. And he just said, he looked at me and he said, that's a great point. And he said, point taken. So it's so vast that sometimes we have to sit back and just take it all in, and then add all of the skills that we know on top of that, and then the things that we're learning. So if you're able to do those things, and handle two forks at one time, you're going to be totally successful in this arena, I believe.
I'm absolutely going to start saying that to my children. Thank you. Learn it all. Be a learn it all, not a know it all. This is great. A great thing we can all learn from you today. Thank you. Jothi, what do you think? Do the trends of moving to the cloud and moving to remote work help make the sector more appealing to a broader workforce? And, can this flexibility we've been learning over the last year and a half really make it easier or more appealing for women to have it all in the cyber sector?
Sure. So I think this kind of ties into what I was going to say for the previous question as well. But so it is more accessible now, right? So a lot of companies have actually changed their ways to say it's telework only for the next foreseeable future. So that kind of opens the doors for more women, especially working moms out there, or even stay-at-home moms that are kind of looking out to come out of their comfort zone, but they don't know how to get into the field. And what my fellow colleagues were saying before, it's like the door is open, and cyber is such a large field that it doesn't require you just to have the technical skills. It's actually everything else that you bring to the table, your soft skills, your ability to multitask, to problem solve. Especially if you're a working mom, you're already problem solving on a daily basis, probably 24 hours a day. And you're also multitasking. And then you kind of have to do that. So it's the same thing in cyber as well, but it's also your other creative skills. If there's a problem and there's really no easy fix to it, moms and women in general are just wired to just, okay, well, let's see what else we can do. Let's just let's just figure out and then how to solve the problem in an amicable way, to collaborate, to work with each other, not, putting each other down. But also, I was actually going to tie cybersecurity with marriages. If you and relationship development, because it's all about building those relationships. Communication, as Michelle said, is key in a relationship, right? You have to be able to communicate your needs and wants. It's the same thing in cybersecurity. It's not your personal needs that you're communicating, but you have to communicate the need, the value of cyber to other stakeholders that may not quite understand. And you have to work with them. You have to collaborate with them. You can't just say, well, I don't like this person, so I'm just not going to worry about them. You kind of have to work with a variety of different roles. So it's very unique in that aspect where you get to work with all kinds of stakeholders. You're not just stuck with just your own manager or that pipeline. You have to be able to work with different kinds of people, different mindsets. Sometimes to work with adversity and be able to, put it all together. So if you're really good in relationships and relationship management, you're going to be good in cybersecurity as well, because it involves the same type of skill sets. And as we move to the cloud and everything's starting to become virtual and AI, it just opens the door for more diversity because you could do it from home. It involves a different type of skill set. It's not just, it's not like how cyber was 20 years ago, where it was primarily focused on technical aspects, but now the door is wide open. So it's a great time to get in there.
Agreed. I wanted to move to Michelle for a moment. Michelle, when we were speaking earlier, you mentioned that work was being done in universities to engage students and in thinking about cyber all the time, and all IT students in engaging in cyber. So we're here, in the DC area, very much at a hub of activity. Do you think that the lessons we've learned can also be used to provide opportunity to more individuals in the and universities that may have been isolated previously?
I do. Absolutely. I think that the universities, because we are in the hub of this area, and there's so much going on from a federal perspective and from a defense perspective, we kind of have the luxury of having the latest and greatest of technology and concepts and ideology. And a lot of that's being developed in the universities around here. I look at some of the, when I came into, when I wanted to go to school, it was just IT, my first bachelor's degree, but I found myself having to go back and get 2 more degrees because it then became cyber and IT, so I started to watch the universities merge cyber, information assurance, and compliance and audit into IT into those realms. And so it started out as IT being merged into those realms, and now those realms are merged into IT. So I think the universities have it right here. And I think that across the country, it's not always the same, because this is not where their playground is. So you see those programs really starting to catch hold here in this area. It's been my experience.
I think I was going to add that I think with the growth and expansion, the evolution of what cybersecurity is, it helps provide women more of an opportunity to get involved through related areas that they might be interested. So maybe they're not specifically interested in cybersecurity or cyberspace area, but maybe they're interested in AI, and AI definitely has components that will have need for cybersecurity. Maybe they're interested in privacy, which also has a security component to it. So I think as we become more of a digital space, we're going to see more and more opportunities for these overlaps in security and overlays of security into areas where women are already having really amazing careers.
If I can add to that, Danielle, I have 3 friends now that went to my alma mater. They started out in IT and then cyber and information assurance, and then they moved into international cyber law. That field is wide open right now, and it's getting a lot of buzz here in the DC area, and I'm super excited about it. And I thought about the program, but then I said, do I want that student loan? No, I don't want that. So, but it's really, really exciting. But it's still, you can still go and do the research and stay on top of, you know, the trends and things like that. That, to me, that's going to be the next frontier, cyber law, international cyber law. And I'm seeing a lot of exciting things come out of it as well. And so you know, the door is wide open for women, I think, in cybersecurity.
If I may add to that, just really quick, what Michelle was saying, even areas like FBI and CIA, where, you know, if you were a woman or a young woman or girls that are thinking of going to that, sometimes before it was a little scary, like, oh, you have to move to some far off location and, you know, not have a family and this and that. But now you could actually still work for those types of agencies that do cyber crime. And you can do that from anywhere. So it's kind of like opening the platforms and opening doors for all different kinds of roles, even ones that you probably had to physically go to before. Now you could do it all either on the computer electronically or even from home, possibly.
Great point. Great point.
Awesome. I want to throw this next question out to all of you. And Jothi touched on this a little bit before, but, you know, where can we see the results of efforts that have already been put in? Are there sustainable changes from these efforts that are taking hold anywhere?
So I could speak on, you know, on the NIH front. You know, once we were done with the campaign, you know, we were able to transition that to continue on, because that is the sign of success. It's not just creating one change and then that's it, your project is done, and whoever, you know, you're just kind of leaving it up to air to figure out how that's going to continue. So it's the sustainment of these efforts, and it's the engagement of the broader community. It's not just the IT and cyber staff that really set us up for success. So now, and sometimes it could, you know, sometimes when they say you might see, you might see like an increase of incidents, for example, but that's only proving that you did your job, because now you have alerted people like, oh, this is considered an incident and you should report that, versus before they might not have thought of something, oh, you know, I did that accidentally, but I don't need to tell anyone. So it's also kind of opening up their awareness that, hey, these cyber leaders and these cyber staff are not so scary after all. They're just trying to do the right thing. So it's okay if I tell them or ask them questions or call them before I do something to make sure you know, this is the right way to do it. So sometimes you might see an uptake when you create these type of initiatives, but then later on, you know, you'll notice that you have improved the entire environment by starting with the mindset and the culture and leadership, and then you know, get buy-in, negotiation. So all of these, going back to that question of what other skills might be necessary that women kind of automatically bring to the table, it's like negotiation skills, you know, the ability to paint the picture or tell the story in a certain way. You know, when you're dealing with their kids, you're not just going to tell them, you must do this because I said so. I mean, gone are those days. You know, I have 3 kids myself, and somehow that never works. Just telling the story in the way that they understand it. And you have to do that a lot in cyber.
Excellent. Yeah, if I can add to that, some of the things that I'm seeing and I'm super, super excited about, I get invited to the aerospace, a lot of the STEM initiatives and things like that. I am so excited when I see young women in their element and they come up with these great, you know, projects, and they're just like, you know, I'm super excited about it. And you go to them as a judge and you ask them to explain it. and they can walk you through it like with excellence. And so that's how I know that it's changing, because those young women are going to be the future. So that's super exciting to me. So I'm seeing that change every day, and all around the area.
One of my favorite success stories about how an effort has been able to be sustained is the Women in Cybersecurity conference. Started as a grant to a university in Tennessee to put on this conference, and has grown in a matter of less than 10 years to a whole community who has created regional chapters. There's international chapters of these women in cybersecurity who are just helping support each other and bring together mentorships and practice sessions for competitions and capture the flags. And that's one of my favorite success stories, especially about how women can come together and help each other into the career.
Well, you've all answered my last question. I was going to ask, who's going to do this if we're 500,000 people short already? But it sounds like, there's a huge groundswelling. There are a lot of really wonderful folks working on this. And I would love to talk about this all day, but I see we're running short on time. So thank you all for sharing your knowledge and experience today. It's really great to hear from, successful women leaders like yourselves in cybersecurity. Thank you for being here. For any viewers interested in resources to help you break into or grow the cyber workforce, we'll have those available on our website. So please check back at the event link in 1 to 2 days. Thank you. And I'm going to now turn it over. We have Clara Conti here. She's the general manager from Presidio Federal, and she will be giving us a bit of an industry perspective today. Clara?